Hello and welcome to GFN Soul NYC FM. I'm Robert Ashley, and we welcome you to another edition of The Robert Ashley Show. Now, what we do here is news and commentary, and be sure to hit that like button and also subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so we can let you know when we're going to drop a new product for you. Now, also, we continue to thank you for being with us. Now, after a real grueling day there, if you will, we encourage you to tune in to my colleague Wayne G. of The Quiet Storm each and every night. 10 o'clock Central Standard Time, some of the best throwback love music, and we encourage you to relax because we got so much that's stressing us out right now. But once again, 10 o'clock each and every night, it's called The Quiet Storm, hosted by our colleague Wayne G., who's coming to us from the Sugar Hill neighborhood there in New York, one of the boroughs there, as well as right here in Dallas, Texas. Well, our top story today, we're continuing to give you information about the developing conditions with regards to the 2024 presidential elections, and also an update on the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. Well, first, the situation involving the 2024 presidential elections. You've heard by now that our current president, Joseph Robinette Biden, has decided not to run for re-election. Now, he's going to remain president of the United States. He may have maybe 5 more months to serve as president. So don't get it twisted. Now, he's not resigning as president of the United States, but what he's doing, he's made a decision, issued a statement that he will not seek re-election. He will not have to worry about facing the former President Donald John Trump. Now, according to Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Hakeem Jeffries, all top Democrats, and of course the big top dog is former President Barack Obama. They've all come to the conclusion that Joe just can't go anymore. That debate performance and also his showing in the polls and the fact that former President Donald Trump has been leading in all of these so-called swing states is one of the reasons why the Democrats say, okay, Joe, we love you. We thank you for all that you've done. And President Joe Biden finally acquiesced and realized that having Kamala Harris take on former President Donald Trump would make the Democratic Party, put them in a better position to possibly win the elections. But of course, former President Donald Trump, as soon as the announcement came forth that President Mr. Biden will not be seeking re-election, then, of course, Mr. Trump, in his own braggadocious way, said, okay, bring on the next candidate. And he's looking forward to debating and taking on Vice President Kamala Harris. So for Joseph Robinette Biden, there are many who are continuing to thank him for the job that he has done. Many Democrats are saying that it shows that he puts America first. I'm talking about President Joe Biden by getting out of the race and doing what he believes is best for the Democratic Party as well as the American people. But if you talk to a Republican on the other side, they might say, well, look, Joe Biden was terrible. He couldn't string together 2 sentences. And the performance that he had during the debate was completely dismal, and it would have been a landslide had he run against former President Donald Trump, who did indeed survive the assassination attempt. Now, Democrats are very smart. They realize that President Trump surviving this assassination attempt probably gave him more firepower, so to speak, more enthusiasm, and also a sympathetic appeal to the American people, because the American people was watching the situation. The media has played it. It's all caught on tape where the president was catching his ear, bullet whizzing by his ear and all that kind of thing. He's also talked about that, and that really gave him a bump in the polls. So Democrats are saying, well, geez, he survived the assassination attempt. Nobody wanted to see that, so the Democrats say. But we continue to ask the question, who stands to gain had the former president been shot and killed, and who had the power to carry it out? And speaking of the Secret Service and who had the power to carry all this out, now the Secret Service supposedly was responsible for protecting the former president. But as it stands right now, the Secret Service director went before members of Congress and was literally grilled. And she said it was just too early to try to answer any specific questions as to why there were no Secret Service agents on the roof, where the shooter, Thomas Matthew Crooks, was actually on that roof. There were many people. It's all kinds of cell phone video. Hey, there's a guy on the roof with a gun. So there are some in this country who literally believes that this was an inside job. This was a setup by the so-called deep state. Now, here in Dallas, Texas, yes, we're here in Dallas, Texas, Texas, where former President John Fitzgerald Kennedy was literally shot and killed as he was riding down Elm Street in Dallas, Texas. That, and until this very day, some maybe 60 years later, we still don't know who is responsible for the shooting death of former President John Fitzgerald Kennedy. Now, Lee Harvey Oswald was indeed accused and arrested. But we also saw Jack Ruby, this so-called club owner who had deep state mob ties, so to speak, allegedly. And we saw him shoot and kill Lee Harvey Oswald live on TV right here in Dallas, Texas. Shot him in the basement there as he was being transferred. And in those type areas there, take, for example, as a journalist, we have credentials. The only way you can get into that area is that you're a credentialed person. And, of course, there's still a lot of questions about who allowed Jack Ruby to get there and be able to just open up and shoot Lee Harvey Oswald in the stomach, thus killing him. And, of course, Jack Ruby later died of cancer, and what kind of secrets he took to the grave, we just don't know. But the way the deep state and the intelligence community works is they have what they call plausible denial. Plausible denial, meaning that they could possibly, oh, well, we didn't know this or we didn't know that, we're not responsible for this or this, whatever. But you never know. You never know. And we may never know what really happened regarding the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. Was it an inside job? Did the Secret Service, the FBI, did they stand down? Are they responsible for carrying out assassinations? And, of course, we here in Dallas, Texas, we still haven't received all of the declassified documents or classified documents regarding the shooting death of John Fitzgerald Kennedy. But, of course, we'll have a little bit more on that coming up later on. But getting back to Kamala Harris, who is the Vice President of the United States, and at this point, she is the leading candidate to take on former President Donald Trump. Now, as it stands right now, money, there's a lot of money involved. Now, take, for example, the Democratic National Committee. They've raised anywhere from $90 to maybe $200 million. But the only people who could have access to the $90 to $200 million is either President Joseph Biden or Vice President Kamala Harris. So, therefore, it seems like Kamala Harris right now, as of this taping, is going to be at the top of the ticket based upon what the media is saying and because of the $200 million that's already in the coffers of the Democratic Party. Now, things could change at the upcoming Democratic convention that will be taking place in August in Chicago, Illinois. And as it stands right now, Barack Obama from Chicago, Illinois, Michelle Obama basically grew up there on the south side of Chicago. Now, there had been a lot of talk at one time about the former First Lady, Michelle Obama, coming to the rescue and running against Donald John Trump. But she basically issued a statement not too long ago saying, look, I'm not interested in this. I don't want to run for President of the United States. I'm not really interested. Thus, Kamala Harris is indeed the person that many are watching. But at the upcoming Democratic convention, it could be an open nomination process. Now, the delegates, it's going to be up to the delegates to determine who will be the nominee for the Democratic Party. Now, in terms of delegates, take, for example, you saw recently the Republican National Convention where Donald John Trump, of course, is indeed the person who will run, who, of course, is indeed the nominee, so to speak. But in terms of delegates, you heard a lot of those states say, well, from the great state of Texas, all of our 29 or however many delegates we have here in the state of Texas will go to Kamala Harris. And you're going to hear that coming up at the Democratic Convention. But the big question is, will there be someone else who will decide to challenge Kamala Harris in terms of the Democratic nomination, or will they all get in line in terms of the Democratic Party and obey, if you will? So, therefore, it's going to be interesting. The Democratic National Convention coming up in August, and also another major question that many are asking, if Kamala Harris will be the Democratic nominee for President of the United States running against Donald Trump in 2024, who will be her vice presidential pick? Now, this is going to be very, very interesting. There are some who are saying she's got to choose some liberal white male, and that because she is a so-called minority, a woman of color there, if you will, that she cannot select another person of color. So therefore, are you going to look for a liberal white male? Who could it be? There's been talk of Andy Beshear, the governor of Kentucky. That's one name that we haven't heard very many other names. But as it stands right now, our current President Joe Biden will not seek the Democratic nomination. He has endorsed openly Kamala Harris, a woman of color, to be the Democratic nominee to take on Donald John Trump.
With President Biden expected to drop out of the 2024 election, some are rallying behind Vice President Kamala Harris.
No one knows better how to prosecute the case against Donald Trump than Kamala Harris.
She tried, remember, in 2020 in the Democratic primary, and we'll see if she's able to come out strong and then maintain that success this time around.
It does put us in a position to have a significantly more competitive election had Joe Biden stayed in the race.
Here's how Harris could stack up in a race against former President Donald Trump.
Donald Trump simply does not have the character to be President of the United States.
Experts say Harris could have a tough campaign trail ahead, but she does have some key advantages.
How do you win the presidency if you don't win the majority of white voters? You have to check off all of the other boxes.
One advantage Harris has is her potential to win over more women, people of color, and young voters.
We're going to be able to effectively make the case about women's health care, their right in terms of choosing how they want to live their lives.
This is a fight for freedom. The fundamental freedom of a woman to make decisions about her own body.
A Wall Street Journal poll in April found that abortion was the most powerful issue by far driving suburban women in swing states. Over half of the women in the poll said Trump's policies on abortion were too restrictive. Some Democrats and political experts also expect Harris to invoke more excitement from black voters. A critical advantage at a time when support from that group was slipping for Biden.
As an African-American woman, she's going to have a unique opportunity in terms of how she communicates and has a conversation with voters in Detroit, Michigan, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. These urban centers are really where we're going to need historic turnout to consolidate around Kamala so that way we win these critical swing states.
Harris could stand to gain younger voters who had lost confidence in Biden's ability to beat Trump.
Kamala Harris gets to be the knight in shining armor here. She gets to ride in on the horse and be the candidate that is not Joe Biden, that can carry the policies and ideas of Joe Biden without some of the concerns that led to Joe Biden's decision to remove himself.
A July poll by Emerson College, conducted before the assassination attempt on Trump, found that people between the ages of 18 and 29 were the least motivated to vote. Biden was still leading the Democratic ticket at the time of the poll.
It's the younger Democrats, which is, in my opinion, the base of the party. And it's more than just voting. It's about canvassing. It's about phone calling. It's about get out the vote efforts.
We cannot do it without all of your help.
All of this is part of the campaign that I think was lacking with Biden, and that's why we have Harris to see if we can capture that energy that has been missing.
Harris actually channels a lot of the candidate characteristics and features of Obama that generated this excitement in 2008.
He was awesome. He was brilliant. Just what I was looking for.
This is a young candidate of color that is going to sell us on a vision of America that is multicultural, that is more unified, that is moving into a new future.
At 59 years old, Harris is significantly younger than Biden, who's 81.
We get to go coast to coast without worrying about her energy level in terms of hitting critical media markets.
Some political experts say Harris's background as a prosecutor helped her come off as a strong debater in her 2020 presidential campaign.
You know, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools. And she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me.
This becomes a moment where Harris looks extremely strong. Suddenly she goes from polling in the single digits to close to 20%.
And after her vice presidential debate with Mike Pence, polls showed that more voters thought she won.
Well, let's get but Susan, this is important.
Susan,
I want to add, but Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking.
I'm
speaking.
Experts say that in a race against Trump, she needs to replicate that debate success.
You also have to be very careful because we've never seen someone survive an assassination attempt and then step onto the debate stage, talk about this openly as a signal of love of country. How will Kamala Harris handle the events that have catapulted Trump's popularity and favorability amongst his base?
Recent polls like this one by Emerson College show Harris significantly trails Trump.
What we've seen over the last year when Biden was on the ticket is Trump had a ceiling of about 46%. Never does he really go above that number, not before the conviction, after the conviction, post-debate. Biden was losing ground or gaining ground, but not being able to get over 45%. Can a Harris candidacy get over 45, 48%? What she really needs to do is get closer to 50%, and that could give the Democrats the edge.
But polls only capture voters' feelings at a specific moment in time, and these results came in before the assassination attempt on Trump and before Biden dropped out of the race.
When we're looking at these polls prior to the announcement, these are hypothetical candidates, and we ask voters who really haven't taken much time to think about these individuals, so they give you a knee-jerk reaction generally based on name recognition.
Wow, that's going to be quite interesting to see how this campaign will shape up. It's going to be very interesting to see a woman of color, if indeed the Democrats decide at their convention coming up in August that Kamala Harris, our vice president, will indeed be the Democratic nominee. Now, one thing that many are saying that if indeed the Democrats dump Kamala Harris, then that they're going to have hell to pay when it comes down to black women. Because here in Dallas, Texas, recently, the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, did speak to literally 20,000 or more at the Alpha Kappa Alpha convention in Dallas, Texas. And she was received very, very warmly, and that's an instant 20,000 vote from all of those black women. But see, on the other hand, there's a lot of concern about black men and whether or not she's going to get the support from black men. As it stands right now, a lot of black men are leaning towards former President Donald Trump because of his criminal justice reform and the fact that prices were lower. We didn't have the 20% inflation when he was in office, even though the deficit really did indeed go up. Now, the former president, in terms of identifying with black men, having survived an assassination attempt, and in the black community, we've seen more black men shot and killed in many, many occasions. Let me bring in my colleague, Wayne G., who is coming to us from the Sugar Hill neighborhood there in New York City. And Wayne, I tell you, we've had some big developments regarding who's going to be the next president of the United States.
Well, I'm just scared. At this point, nothing makes sense. Every day we're getting up to something else that's different that don't seem to make any sense whatsoever. Kamala, I haven't heard her say anything that has motivated me in the 4 years that she's pretty much been in office. She's just been someone that they say we have a black first lady. I mean, all I've heard is just she was good at locking up, a lot of black men. So on that behalf,
yes,
I can't get in line with that. That's just, I mean, if people do what they want to do. I see a lot of our people, I'm with Kamala. I'm with Kamala. You don't even know her.
Yes.
You don't know nothing about her. You go for this color situation. It ain't about the color. It's about who can get this country through where we're going. We're going through some rough waters right now.
Mm-hmm.
The other day we seen the nation shut down with some computer glitch.
Cloud strike, yes.
Right. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we have to start recognizing what are we doing for ourselves, because politicians hadn't done anything. And the fact that at this point in our lives, we're still talking about who can do something for the blacks.
Now, the fact that she is a woman of color, it's going to be a question as to whether or not she's truly black.
It doesn't matter.
Yes.
I mean, if she's a woman of color,
yes,
I just don't see the respect that she had for people of color. I mean, even when we had the Obamas in office,
yes,
a lot of things didn't happen positive for the blacks.
Yes, and there's been a lot of talk about this so-called talented 10th class, that these are what they call bourgeois blacks. These are not the blacks from the hood. These are the so-called bourgeois blacks, right? And that they're only in it for themselves. And that's why we don't see change trickling down overall in the black community. And up there in the Bronx, you're familiar with the Bronx. President Trump, it seems like many people are rallying around President Trump. And I'm just wondering if he making a serious inroad within the communities of color?
I do know that, I keep giving Trump that picture of an old grandfather.
Yes.
They tell it like it is. And sometimes you don't like the things that come out their mouth. But I do know when he was in office, he helped a lot of black colleges and and some other organizations, on the black side.
Yes,
You
yes.
remember that, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I mean, he has his ways, and we all don't agree with him. I don't agree with a lot of things, but he had his ways of doing things in the black community too. So I'm just saying, man, right now we have to find God. You know what I'm saying? You keep on trying to pick these leaders, and you're getting deeper and deeper into quicksand. Now it's time to turn to the Lord, the Almighty. You know, and because we can't settle what's going to happen here on this earth, because it's scripture that eventually the end is coming, and it's scripture that in Revelations is scripture that governments are going to fall.
Well, speaking of God, now, the fact that former President Donald Trump did survive the assassination attempt, and of course there's all kinds of allegations that this might have been an inside job, and that Joe Biden went on and got out of the way now that the assassination attempt failed, because everything else seemingly that the Democrats have thrown at the former president, lawfare here, lawfare there, all that stuff, the court system it's kind of blowing up there. Now, you spoke of God. There have been many who said that the president survived the assassination attempt as an act of God. And then I had somebody say, well, look, did God not care for Martin Luther King? Did he not care for John Fitzgerald Kennedy? Or can you even compare the two?
Okay, well, I'm going to make it like this. God used them, and then they had to go. Okay. That's why Martin Luther King made that final speech that I may not get there with you.
Wow.
I've been to the mountaintop.
Yes.
So God showed him that in his death, the change was going to come.
Oh, my goodness.
Because, again, I tell people Martin Luther King didn't spend one day with his civil rights. But when he passed away from being murdered, that even infuriated white people, because this man was a nonviolent guy that just wanted a better change for everybody.
Yes,
so
indeed.
when Martin was killed, what was the next thing happened? That civil rights bill was passed, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
so
indeed.
sometime you have to be sacrificed for the better of your people.
And one other thing too, when you talked about Dr. King's final speech at the Memphis, at the temple there in Memphis, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, many people may not know, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, before he was assassinated, gave a speech warning against the so-called deep state. And it seems like President Trump has been battling the so-called deep state as well. So it seems like we've got a big quiet war that's going on between various fractions over power, because there is concern that if President Trump gets back in office, then former President Barack Obama, Joe Biden could possibly wind up facing indictments, all sorts of allegations here.
Yeah, but we just got to be careful, because I think there's an agenda greater than what we know that's being pushed to get us to be off balance. Like this other day, we got a taste of what could happen if your bank shut down.
My goodness.
And all these different things. What are they going to tell you need to do to avoid losing anything?
Wow.
And what are you willing to do not to lose something?
Yes.
So some of these agendas could be put in front of us, acting like it really happened, but it didn't happen. It's getting you prepared to make that next change.
Wow.
So we got to be careful right now. Like I said, the greatest thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to roll on God's team. I'm not afraid to die, because that's going to happen regardless of whatever. We got to get out of this scary situations that we in. We get scared over everything. We want to jump on everybody's bandwagon without even researching, I'm for Kamala. Well, tell me what she represent first before you for her. Because she hadn't said anything at all since she's been the vice president.
Like the big thing for Kamala Harris, she is protecting what she calls a woman's right to choose when it comes down to the so-called reproductive health, whereas on the other hand, some people might call her, well, you're just going around aborting your seed, and that more black women have been aborting their seeds more than anybody. Well, over 20 to 40,000, maybe even 50 million black babies have been killed. And, of course, a lot of white babies and a few Mexican babies, because the Mexicans will seemingly hold on to their children. But that's one thing that she's been advocating. And also they've been advocating the transgender agenda.
But then the man's agenda is going out the window. And what I say about the situation, and I don't want to sound like I'm insensitive, but you got a commercial out that says drink responsible. You gotta have sex responsible. And then that is not an issue You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
So it's about responsible. If you responsible, then we don't have all these children that you feel that you want to have the right to get rid of or not get rid of. So, and another thing too that I said years ago is if the woman has the right to get rid of the kid, then the man should have the right not to be on child support if he doesn't want to be a father.
My goodness.
It can't be a one-way situation where, oh, I may want to be a father and the woman feels she doesn't want to be a mother. So I have no say-so.
One last quick point. Now, you know she's married to a white man who happens to be a Jew. And I've had black women tell me that when they see black men with white women that, oh, you hate your mother. You have rejected your whole race of people. Will that even come up in this debate?
Well, I just feel that who you love is who you love. But that should not discredit you from doing the things you need to do for your race.
Yes, indeed.
Because your children is still going to be born in the bulk of their blood is going to be Afro, no matter what. You can't erase that. So again, what you do for yourself, you still have to be able to do for your race. First and foremost.
My goodness.
You're the president of the world, but you're the president of your people. You can't allow your people to disappear while you in charge of anything. They have to grow too.
Well, did Barack Obama fail black folks when he did not get
I really believe
reparations passed?
I really believe that he looked good at what he did, but a lot of things wasn't good for us.
My goodness. All right. Well, that's my colleague Wayne G. And of course, once again, you're watching the Robert Ashley Show right here on GFN Radio Soul and TV at GFN Soul NYC FM. Now, also, Wayne, he alluded to the fact that we just experienced what was considered to be a major computer blackout. Now, CloudStrike, that's a company that is basically in control of the worldwide technology there, if you will. And a couple of days ago, we saw our banks go down, everything that was based upon CloudStrike, and they claimed they were just trying to put in some software that was upgrading. And what they wound up doing, and at this taping, we understand people are still having a difficulty there trying to get a lot of the computer things restored. So whether or not CloudStrike, which is located right here in Texas, down in Austin, Texas, whether or not they was telling us, look, somebody's got control of buying and selling, because a lot of the banks went down, hospitals went down, all of our major computer satellites had all kinds of problems. And of course, there have been those who've been warning about a cyber attack. All right, well, once again, you have been watching, of course, GFN Soul NYC FM. I'm Robert Ashley. Now, once again, be sure to like our channel, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so we can let you know when we're dropping a new product. And also, each and every night, 10 o'clock, my colleague Wayne G will give you the Quiet Storm. That's a lot of quiet, sexy music that you can listen to as you're getting ready to renew yourself for another day. Once again, I'm Robert Ashley. Thank you for being with us. We'll see you. Want you to have a blessed day.